College Countdown here with Josh Neighbors and Jack Allen. A fun, exciting show. We've hit the midweek point, kind of almost the midpoint of the season, and we've got off-season type storylines coming your way. Bill Belichick might be done at UNC, really over before the party got started. Also, the Arch Manning discourse and the James Franklin discourse, and kind of conversations about the conversations that are happening right now. I'm Josh Neighbors. He is Jack Allen. You guys can follow him on Twitter at Jack Allen TV. Yes, correct?
Yeah, that's it.
All right. We're at CC Podcast JN. Also, I'm at Josh Neighbors _. You guys can find the show wherever you all get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. All right. So, Jack, let's begin with the Bill Belichick discourse. There's been some reporting, extensive reporting, first from, I believe, a TV station, WRAL, and then almost an article style, like news report, which you don't see. You work in TV. You don't see a lot of that. You see extensive reporting from TV folks, but the rare combination article / video piece.
Well, it's really cool to see, as someone who works in local TV, to see it be done at this level and this extensive. Part of the issue is that, like, with TV, a lot of the stuff we have to do is get people to say stuff on camera, and a lot of these stories develop through stuff that happens off camera. And so there's a very difficult way to walk that line of how do you produce something for broadcast that also doesn't have any broadcast elements to it, because, getting people off the record, you can't necessarily do with when you're lugging around a big camera. And so it's really cool to see it develop from that way, and the way that it's taken off and the stories that have come out of it. Things are not looking great in North Carolina right now, Josh.
Yeah, and like this was from the start, and so we've talked about this some, but I just kind of want to reiterate this. Like the reason why I had questions about Bill Belichick, and it had been made by other folks too, was that when you bring in a coach like Belichick to replace especially a Mac Brown, like big names are supposed to bring money, and it did apparently, but the roster does not seem appreciably better. Like money equals better players, better roster, but the roster does not seem much better. And I know Gio Lopez, got hurt. Max Johnson had to play, but still, there's still bad on defense, and the offense doesn't look great. And there's nothing innovative that he's doing. Like, he's not like finding like the Andy Kotelnickis of the world, like we see other coaches do. You know what I mean? Like we see a Lance Leipold do. Where Chris Kleiman brings in a Colin Klein, et cetera, et cetera. And so, he's bringing Steve Belichick, his son and stuff around. So, like, what is he adding? Because it's not like he does anything super progressive. He does the do your job, but it's weird because that worked in the NFL. It might have worked in college, but, like, because the game's changing, the adaptive coaches typically are the ones who do a better job. And, he's quite literally the opposite. And from all its reporting, I mean, he wasn't talking to players. And, like, look, when you read the reporting, it's like he wouldn't talk to families. Well, should assistant coaches be texting players' parents all the time? Like, no, but also, like, that's the game. So, like, the answer is actually yes. And he's just like, no. And, like, doesn't really seem to have much of a relationship. And these are kids. So, like, do your job doesn't work because you have to show them how to do your job sometimes, and work with them. And he's been unwilling to do that. And, like, what does UNC do well?
Nothing.
Yeah.
And part of the problem is that, I mean, they're not that talented of a roster anyway. And, he came in December, so it's not like he was super behind the curve in terms of when coaches come in. Now, he was behind the curve simply because he wasn't used to the college game, didn't know what exactly to look for, didn't know exactly how the budgets operate and all this stuff. There is a learning curve to it. But there was some reporting that came out with The Athletic that basically talked about, other coaches in that area. G5 coaches were like, North Carolina kept on outbidding them for players. And it's this idea of, like, why is North Carolina
what are they doing
against us?
Right.
G5? Why are they going for the same guys we are? And so there's kind of this idea that Bill didn't really know what he was getting into, didn't really know the landscape of how things worked, and didn't take much time to figure that out in order to create a competent roster going into this year. And I think it's played out as if that's what happened, to where, North Carolina doesn't have the guys to compete, and definitely doesn't have the guys to compete if you're not going to be super active and hands-on and trying to bring them up to a next level, which I think, Bill is used to working at that NFL level where guys come into the league really good at least certain things, and that's why they're in the league. And you kind of take what they're really good at and say, do your job, do what you're good at. That's not how college works, because you got kids who are 18 that don't know what they're good at yet or aren't good at something.
And like, you might get lucky with young kids being super mature, but that's not always the case.
Yeah.
I do think too, the last Clemson game, I hate to use individual results, but the fact that Clemson has struggled to look like the roster that we all thought they were going to be, and then a roster that was supposed to be better than the one they had last year made Clemson's roster look like the roster that they were supposed to be, right? Like there's like something's missing, and I think it's just like the connectivity, right? Like there is, I'm not saying you have to have singular vision, singular goal always, all the time, but football is our large organizations, and typically with that thing, you want them to feel connected. It just obviously does not, and that's from the players, that's from obviously the parents. I think the WRAL stuff saying like those old guys who stayed felt like outcasts. Like, brother, you got to fill the roster out somehow, right? Like, and the new guys you brought in aren't necessarily superstars, are there? So, you can't treat those guys like that. Like, I was always against the way Dion, said, I'm bringing my Louis and whatnot. And turns out like that team started fast, but they couldn't sustain it, which that's what happens when you overturn rosters. Like that's the big question for a Kansas or a Vanderbilt when they're trying to punch up is, yeah, it might look good in the first month, but how does it look in October and November? And sometimes you just need to maintain guys you had just to keep some depth. He didn't seem interested in keeping those guys engaged. On the team, sure. Engaged, not really.
Well, that's the difference between Dion and Bill, is that we looked at what Dion brought in, and Dion at least had some nice luggage that he was bringing with him. With Bill, he kind of came in and you looked around and it's like, okay, Gio is an unproven quarterback from a G5 that's, have got one season under his belt. Like, it's not like a Shedeur that has lots of experience as a starting quarterback and a Travis Hunter who's got the potential to be a number one pick. Like, that's not what Bill was bringing with him. And so, it worked, and it didn't really work for Dion. Like, let's be clear, that first season, it didn't really work for him.
Yeah, having Travis Hunter and Shedeur worked the second year,
yeah, but he had some pieces that he brought with him,
Horn, Dylan
was not in a position to do that, to ostracize the experience that he had, to ostracize the depth that was still on the roster. And like you said, like we said, he's going after guys that G5 schools are going after.
Yeah, it's like, why is this guy betting like why is this guy betting like way too much money at like the $5 blackjack table? Or it's like the or $10, $5 to $100 table. And this guy's like 100. People are going betting $2. Yeah, that's the way it seems. And we have we haven't mentioned this yet, but like the news here is that they're exploring an out, because this is a smart school. These are smart people. They think of themselves as very smart people. I grew up in the area. My dad went to Wake Forest. My brother's in dental school at UNC. It's a great school. It's prestigious school. People there are smart. They don't like being made to look dumb. They're looking really like, there's a difference between Hubert Davis's level of failure, which they're putting up with because he's had some success, and this is trending like one way very clearly. And not to mention all the personal stuff too in concert with his age. So credit to them for seeing it coming. Also, not credit to them for making this move in the first place. But I think there was some things that maybe they could not have seen. Potentially, like the stuff with the girlfriend. I mean, that, like, to me, that was troubling when like the only person there for a book tour was one person. You and I have interviewed people who are on book tours and stuff and promoting stuff all the time. There's usually an apparatus there. Never good when you've got one person, the 25-year-old girlfriend, who's also answering football questions during the interview. Like something's up there.
Well, and I think that a lot of people, myself included, thought this was going to go poorly from the beginning. I think we talked about it at the beginning of the year that I didn't think it had the juice that a Dion move or even like a John Gruden move could have. I just didn't think Bill had that juice at the college level. I didn't think it would be this bad. I didn't think it would go this bad this quickly.
Yeah, they suck. Like they beat Maine. Who they beat? 20. It was like 20-0. They beat Charlotte.
Charlotte.
Yeah, not good.
Too. But all of their losses against Power 4 schools have been by 20 plus points. It's not even competitive at this point.
Sideways.
The other part of it is that they're, things are going bad whenever stuff starts coming out about like NCAA violations, whether it's recruiting violations or practice violations.
Those might be self-reported. I mean, this might be like
no, that's what I'm saying. That is the school.
The Kevin
Ollie happens where the school says, "Oh, hey, look at all these things we're doing wrong. The NCAA needs to come down so that we can get out of our end of the buyout."
The Jeremy Pruitt, Kevin Ollie special.
Yes.
Which is sad to see because like you hate those kind of tactics.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, I'm not saying it's, undeserved, deserved, whatever, but like, yeah, this never sits well. Bad situation, but credit to them for being like, we don't care. We'll get out of it and doing it as soon as they are. All right, let's hear from our friends at DraftKings, and then we're going to do the conversation about the Arch Manning conversation. That's coming up next, but first, here are our friends.
Your season, your shot. The NFL season is rolling, and every touchdown can bring you closer to a payout with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. From first touchdown scorer to anytime TD props or the thrill of live in-game betting, every snap is loaded with opportunity. New customers, this one is for you. Bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, score over $200 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code NEIGHBORS. That's code NEIGHBORS to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you place your first $5 bet. Plus over $200 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
All right, I want to thank them. We'll also hear more from them later on in the show. So, Arch Manning discourse. There was an article that was in the New York Times / The Athletic about this slow start being unprecedented. Jack, did you read that piece that Will Light, at least Light, wrote?
Yeah, I skimmed it a bit.
Yeah, so I think he got crushed for it. I don't think he should have, maybe, just because the idea here is that this is a college player who's got all the, basically, is he a bust from the sense of he's treated like a number one pick. He gets all the trappings of that, but he's a college player before, he's proven. I don't think it's necessarily wrong. I've mentioned this. I want to hit this too. This is a sport where right now we're seeing older quarterbacks get rewarded, right? Like Fernando Mendoza is going to be a pro. Carson Beck has matured. And a lot of times, I'd say less in Mendoza's case, more in Beck's case, like personal failure. The fact that Georgia players are saying that like Gunnar Stockton a lot more as a person, it's kind of changed the conversation. And Carson Beck kind of had to change a lot of that stuff. I think the NFL example, Jared Goff makes a Super Bowl, gets traded. And it's like, what does that say about you? And now, like, everybody swears by that guy as a leader and whatnot. And so guys get old and they get good. He has started 5 games. And I felt like as a college football culture, we allowed this hype train to get where it was just so we could do this. Like this was what we were going to do. Whether it was 2 losses, now or October, late October, November, like this was how it was going to end. And I'm not saying Arch Manning's playing well. It's not, I'm just saying this cycle was going to end story-wise. Because it's not like he's playing well, but also the offensive line's not playing great. And the receivers last year were a bit weird to me because like I like the team from 2 years ago. They had a good mix of Jordan Whittington, Xavier Worthy, and good tight end, JT Sanders, and they were at running backs catch the ball. Really well-rounded outfit. This group last year was more all kind of dirt bike-ish, smaller guys, good speed. And Ryan Wingo was the big guy, but he was a freshman.
Yeah. This
team still has kind of got a little bit of that too. And they're not blocking the way that we thought they would either. And I like Quintravion Weiser, and I think his numbers are also kind of bearing that out. Like they're not really getting the help up front they need. And it's all kind of coalescing around Arch, who's not playing well either. And I don't think Sark's calling. I think it's all not working. I don't just think it's Arch, but it's like we've just called him a failure at this point. But it's totally reasonable that he might end up being like he could play better the last month of the year. Or he might not. And guess what? Next year, I wouldn't be shocked if he plays well because he's got a lot of tape of being bad. And being bad, a lot of times, good way to learn how to be good. I feel like I learned in my career best from my failures. I feel like a lot of quarterbacks are the same way. A lot of athletes are the same way. It's just sad because I feel like you could see this conversation coming.
Well, and how many times do we see especially, you think about it in the NFL, players get drafted into bad situations. You look at Daniel Jones, where it's like, oh, he was a bust. He was a failure with the Giants. And then he goes to the Colts and finally finds himself in a better fit, a better team, a better, the pieces around him are better and the culture and fit is just better. And suddenly it's like, oh, this is what people saw in him in the first place. And I think there is a certain amount of that with Arch going on where, like you said, like this team around him is not as good as the team that was around Quinn Ewers last year or the team that was around Arch when he played last year. And that's part of the thing is you looked at what Arch did last year and it wasn't that far-fetched to say, oh, if we look at what he did last year, if he takes a little step, he'll be
he's got ability too. Like
the raw skills.
I don't think he's as good as like I never thought, Jack, that he was like number one guy. Like he looks like a super talented guy, but like he does not look like out of the super talent. Like you remember Trevor Lawrence? It's like this guy's got all the modern.
He's gonna make all the throws.
Right, the angles can move around. Ironically moves around and falls and scores. But like the peak Trevor Lawrence was look at all of the tools coming together in one prospect. I don't feel that way about him, but he's got tools to be an awesome player and a good pro.
Yeah, and just because it hasn't worked out for 5 weeks of the year on a team that's new and that, like you said, looks janky in a lot of other places, doesn't mean that it won't in the future or even won't later this season. I think that there is a bit of a cultural Sark is having to refigure out things because this isn't the team.
He's calling plays like Quinn Ewers is playing.
Exactly.
That's my huge problem is that
and he's calling plays like he has last year's offensive line.
Yeah.
He's calling plays like the weapons that were there are still there. And I feel like that's put Arch in a bad spot where all his limitations are being exposed.
Yeah, and we had a problem that first Ohio State game. I did with the fact that it's like this guy's not a quarterback yet. He plays quarterback. He's an athlete. Do the athlete stuff. And like the problem is that when you play Florida's defense, he didn't look especially athletic. But if you tell him, hey, make choices quicker, like just be sure, like if you want to run, go, do it. Break out. Like I don't want him between. I want him using his athleticism. I actually think side to side, like in a straight foot race, Florida's got some serious dudes on that defense. You're not going to win. But the extending plays part of it, I think Lamar, the best part about Lamar is that Lamar is so good at using his ability to create things that other guys can't create, right? Things are blocked up. He's so fast. He knows I can create a throwing lane, a window. And most guys, and I think Arch includes, like, just use your athleticism to create more time and more just to make things harder on a defense. And he's not being incentivized to use those traits. And that's the thing is I think Sark is really good about calling plays and being the mind and getting good quarterbacks to be the arm. And I think right now he's trying to develop him as a quarterback, which I get. But the best thing for Texas football right now is to have him be the athlete. And I think both can happen. I think you can develop the quarterback. And that's always the balance, right? It's like, how do you develop him as a player, but also do its best for the team? This is a problem that college coaches have all the time. I think more in basketball it happens, but I think it can happen in football as well.
Yeah, it's this idea of like in basketball, it's you need to work in your ability as a passer and your ability to move off the ball, but we also probably need you to score 35 points to win the game. And so, like, how do you develop all those other traditional skills or those extra things you need to work on to get to that next level? While also not sacrificing what you do well. And in Arch's case, his mobility, his ability to extend plays, I think is something that is underutilized as it stands right now.
Yeah, and let's shift this to James Franklin because, so you agree that the conversation's a bit unfair. I don't mind saying he's bad, but it's like this has sucked.
Oh, you're talking about Arch? Yeah, no, Arch.
It's like this.
I think he's fine. He's a fine.
Yeah, they can't block, and he's not good. And
if he had different expectations coming in, we'd be like, okay, yeah, this is
Also, I'm kind of hearing he's been in the program for years. That's not the same as playing.
Yeah,
we got to stop that, man. Ty Simpson's been around for a while, and that first game, guess what? He was slow. And now it's like, he's figuring it out. He's figuring it out. He was awesome last week against Vanderbilt. And here's the thing. it happens faster for some guys. You might argue it should happen faster for a Manning. Sure, but guess what? It's not. It doesn't mean it's not ever going to happen. Like, it doesn't. That's not what it means. And especially quarterback is such a fickle position. Deshaun Watson had it and had the personal stuff, whatever. But like, as a player, then lost it. Guess what? Geno Smith nobody thought about him for years. Ends up having a great year. Sam Darnold, Jared Goff, like all of the Baker Mayfield.
Daniel Jones, like it keeps
yes.
happening.
And it's like, but it's like this is a bust. What a problem. And it's like, this is the hardest position in sports to play. You know, I remember when I told you this, but I worked with Gabe Biker at Oklahoma. He played center, and he goes, the quarterback's always the smartest guy, even if he's a moron. You know why? Because he has to know your playbook and theirs on defense. And like, by virtue of that, he is asked to process so much more. And guess what? Like, sometimes the guys don't put the processing with the play on the field. Sometimes guys never get it. Like, Jeff Driscoll, great example. Number one guy, just never happened for him as a quarterback. Malachi Nelson, never happened for DJ Uiagalelei. Never happened for him. Maybe it does in the future. Who knows? But like, it's just really hard ask. And I think we're acting like it's like, blow it up. It's failure. He might light Oklahoma's ass on fire this week, and we'll all be like, he is back. What a play, Well, we just have to be careful about how we talk about it. I feel like.
I do think part of the conversation issue is that Arch was talked about coming out of high school in a way that very few, if any, like he was kind of a new iteration just because of his last name. And so I think that, there's this conversation of, he's a bust, or, he's the first one in this NIL era to do that. And, you mentioned DJ Uiagalelei, like it's the same. I mean, the same kind of vibe of highly touted, just never quite panned out in the way that people had hoped it would. And so it's not new, and he's not the first. He won't be the last to struggle with high expectations coming out of high school.
And he seems like a good kid too. Like, I think it'd be hard to be Arch Manning just as a person.
Oh, I'd hate it.
It'd be terrible. It'd be really hard. But he also too is like, he mentioned this at media days. He goes, I haven't started. Like, I haven't played. And now also, he's in Warby Parker ads. We're seeing, Glass, and like, he's in ads in the first game. He hasn't played it all. But, why aren't we talking about DJ Lagway this way? Billy Napier got to keep his job because he brought in DJ Lagway. That having that player and that quality, like that's why he got to keep his job. And, as Lagway, like, I think there's a pretty good chance DJ Lagway ends up being still pretty good as a player because he's just like so tremendously talented. But like, it's going to take him some refining and some time pretty clearly. Having a Dallas Wilson is going to help. That catch and run was insane last week.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. But like but we're not treating DJ Lagway that way. And DJ Lagway's played more games. And this year, sure, he's completed nearly 70% of his passes, but 7 touchdowns, 7 picks. And I'll tell you what, Jack, most of them have been he's thrown some the pick 6 against LSU.
The LSU game
like one of the worst I've ever seen. And like, but nobody's beating the hell out of this guy, the way that we're talking about Arch Manning. And this guy is the reason Billy Napier still has a job. And so it's like, and look, I don't want to kill either kid, but why are we not, he's not Peyton Thorne where it's like, I know he's bad. And why is he still out here? God love Peyton Thorne. I hope he's doing well. But like, I can see it coming. This won't go well. Alan Bowman. Like we knew what he was. That's not true yet. We don't know what these guys are, and we still feel a need. And I think the big thing with football is this, and I'll end on this, this conversation at least. There's only 12 games. So like, we can't help but just be like, I just need a reaction, And like, we can't let trends develop enough at this point in time.
Because there's not enough time for a trend to develop. By the time a trend develops, the season's over, and well,
it's like maybe Texas is just a 7-5 team, but as it stands right now, they opened up as a 3-point favorite against Oklahoma's top 5 team right now, and it's because they're but like, we don't know yet what's going to happen with Texas. We know that they've got good defensive players. We know they're not as good as last year, but nobody seems to be as good as last year, and so it's like we just can't let things develop because Texas can still make the playoff. And they've got no wins against power conference teams, but like this week is not a step towards doing so. I think we just got to be more patient with all of this stuff. Which brings us to James Franklin. Do you think, I'm going to ask you this before I set up anything else. Do you think Penn State fans have a gripe about, like, is there a case to fire him? How good is that case? If you think
I would say there is a case, but I don't think it's a great one. I think at this point, it's we talk about all this all the time. It's this idea of expectations versus reality, and the expectations being that Penn State should be competing for national championships and should be competing for the playoffs and for deep runs in the playoffs. Let's not forget they made a deep playoff run last year. Like the idea that I have never been, and this is just as a human being, I am not a knee-jerk reaction guy. I'm really slow to come around on things. I was really
thoughtful, Jack. Give yourself some credit. You're thoughtful.
Really slow to come around on Sam Pittman being fired. And so I don't, I'm not somebody who's going to sit around here and I don't want, I think there's this idea of we talk about the enemy of great being good, or good is the enemy of great. Yes. And I think that's what people talk about a lot with this whole James Franklin discourse, is the idea that he's good, but we can't let good be the enemy of great. The problem is there's not many people out there, not many coaches out there, not many players out there that are truly national championship great. And so,
is he Mark Richt?
Who do you believe is the coach that's going to take them on that next step? And is it worth taking that risk?
That's the conversation.
That's the question.
That's the full question right there. And here's the thing about Georgia. It's I was probably more towards the conservative. I guess it did hit its point with Mark Richt, but is Penn State Georgia? Because Georgia is in Atlanta, which is quite literally the hub of the most successful college football conference that we have, right? There's a lot of talent there. Georgia's a cool campus that is an hour away from a major city with a lot of talent.
That has really good high school football.
Yes, and the state's got great high school football, surrounded by other states with great high school football. And Nick Saban always said, if the right guy got that job, it'd be And Mark Richt was really good. Georgia's a few plays away but Mark Richt was Mark Richt. But just a couple plays away. What I will say is this: I did the numbers on this, and I think this is true. I use Sports Reference very closely. In a 9-year span right now that James Franklin's had, Penn State's had 6 10-plus win seasons. The last time they did that, they've only had three modern coaches between Bill O'Brien, James Franklin, and obviously Joe Paterno. The last time that happened was the 70s. And in that stretch of 9 years, Penn State won their only 2 national championships besides 1914. So, and last year, Jack, they should have been in the championship game. I don't think they were better than Ohio State, and they would have lost that game. But this roster, I thought should have been preseason number 1, in my opinion. And they let go of the rope against UCLA. They also lost a 3-point game against Oregon. I know James Franklin's done it a ton, but then they've got 2 coordinators who I like. Drew Aller should be getting better. They might have missed the receivers. That's kind of the problem. That's kind of the big bugaboo. But Penn State, ask yourself, I don't think every team needs to fire a coach and know who the replacement is. Because I think some level and quality of play is unacceptable. Arkansas. Arkansas does not need to know who they're replacing him with right now. You can't do who they're going to get better. No, it's look, you can think about it. And losing that many one-score games the way they were was unacceptable. And I think as a program, it's good that you're setting that standard, saying we don't accept that. We had to make a move. Same way Virginia Tech did, same way UCLA did. That's good. And Penn State's got to ask themselves, where is your line? What are your expectations? Because you're winning games at a clip that you have not since you won a championship around 50-ish, 45, 40-ish years ago. And there is probably that coach out there who get him over the hump. But you got to find him. And it's who is he? And there's some options, but how many Kirbys are there?
Here's the thing. How ridiculous is it to me to say, if you keep losing to Ohio State in close games, or keep losing to top 10 Oregon teams in close games, there's a difference between that and losing to Memphis in a close game. And I don't know, to me, top 10 losses are not enough to fire a coach. You look at Mark Richt, and what ended up happening with him is they started to dip below that standard. Maybe this UCLA loss is the sign of something slipping.
Yeah,
but it's
program
such
that's
a
not hitting
rare,
the peak, and they're slipping below the pre-established.
but it's such a rare, like this is the only, like, what other James
Fine line.
Franklin loss can you look at that's like this? You don't really have.
Yeah, especially Jim Knowles. I think Jim Knowles is the best defensive coordinator in the country, and Jim Knowles' defense letting go of the rope was shocking to me.
And so like there's a certain amount of me that wants to just chalk this one up to be like a weird day, opposite coast, early, a lot of weird, obviously unacceptable, but excusable is a weird word to put. That's not necessarily the word I want to say, but
also, can we also say, like, people gave Nico a lot of crap, and you can have a problem with the way he handled it. He played his ass off.
Mm-hmm.
He was in, like, Jerry Neuheisel, Rick Neuheisel was kind of the story. Nico was the star. Just relentless effort, and he was getting drilled.
He broke 100 yards rushing. Never done that before. Like,
and because he's a big, it's hard for him. He can move, but like, and for him to show the improvement that he is with the team, like that to me was really impressive. And when you and I talked about doing this podcast, finding the things that in college football, it's not always about CFP, national championship, the top of the sport, everything. It's about stuff like that. Like, that is a very human experience. Watching Rick Neuheisel, who I worked with at XM, being like, "Come on, son," that was special. And seeing Nick, but to me, the thing was seeing that dude. They did not get like go of the rope. There was not many people there to see them welcome in a top 10 team, top 5 team. And you got Jerry Lacrosse Neuheisel out there with the flowing hair, and you got Nico just not taking no for an answer. Like, that to me, as much as James Franklin is the nationally relevant story, the real story is the guy that we dogged who went from a playoff team to forcing his way back to his home state on what appears to be a bad choice, just not giving up and not accepting failure, at least on that day.
At least for a week.
That was cool. That's really cool. That's a human story that was cool. On the other side, we've got James Franklin, the human story. Like, is he going to pull the Dabo where it's like, "He can fire me, tell me"? I don't think James will do that, but like, it was weird to see them let go of the rope that way. I was really surprised, and that's the part that bothers me the most.
Well, and that's the part that bothers me, and that's the thing that's like, a red flag that if it continues in the future is something that can be justification to move on. But for 1 week, for a team to act out of character, I don't think that's enough to say blow the whole thing up
all the time. Like, it happens in football, especially. That happens, like college teams, especially. That's the one thing also about college football is that we ask these college kids, it's like, why aren't they constantly getting better? It's like, yeah, when you were in college, did you make it to every single class, like, on time? Like, you might have had a good week, then you have a bad week. Like, these are still kids doing
Guess
that
what?
stuff too.
There are kids that have to stay up till midnight to study for a calculus test. Like,
yeah.
Josh Dobbs. Weird.
Aerospace engineer Josh Dobbs. All right, so last thing we'll do here from our friends at DraftKings, look at some of the games this week. This is a great schedule this week, Jack, because the sched is well balanced. This is a balanced breakfast, as we like to say. The game that I'm looking at the most is my Missouri Tigers are playing against Alabama. Alabama's on the run from hell right now. They had the Georgia game. Then they had the game against Vanderbilt, which they had to work for that. Now, Diego Pavi might have been working for him too, but they had to work. Like, for a team to give up as many yards as Vanderbilt did, they made them work. And Ty Simpson had to be really, really good. Then they've got next week, I forgot who they had. They got another really hard game next week too. But they're on one of those SEC death runs. They take on Missouri at 11 a.m., coming off a bye. Do you think Alabama's the best team in the SEC right now? And what are your thoughts on this game? The spread, it opened at, I didn't see the opening line here at DraftKings, but somewhere in the range of 5.5, 6. It is now 3. Your thoughts about 11 a.m. Mizzou, Alabama on Saturday?
I think it's a good test, and it's especially a good test for Missouri to see what they're really made of and where they're really at. Because Missouri, Josh, being in Arkansas, we hear it all the time that Missouri has the cakewalk SEC schedule. Things are so easy. If that exists, if that exists, Missouri has it. And this is a real opportunity to prove that it's not just luck of the draw, that this is a legit contender with a quarterback that has, made a point. I'm sure there are people at Penn State who are sitting in the back and saying, man, if only we had that kid in Missouri calling the shots right now. And so
fit matters though.
Huh?
Fit matters.
No, exactly. Like
it's your point.
I don't think that he would be doing what he's doing if he were up there. But I think this is kind of the vibes test for a Missouri team to see, are you for real? The one that I have you talked about SEC teams, by the way. I just saw them as we were scrolling down. Ole Miss, man, as much as I have
number 4 Ole Miss to you.
As much as I have personal beef with one Trinidad Chambliss, like you can't talk about best team in the SEC without having them be at least in the conversation right now.
Jack, that guy, I'm not sure if he can rent a car, but he's pretty close to it. He kind of goes along the lines of like another old quarterback. And, we talked about this before in the podcast, but the reason why you got personal beef, you're Harding Bison, D2 national champions. The following year, it was 2023.
2023, they won it. 2024,
they lost to Trinidad
at Ferris State.
And this guy is just like, you talk about trigger man and just like next man up. Like this guy's a pro. He is. I mean, if you want to ask me like which quarterback do I feel the best about having a 20-year NFL career, I put my money on this guy, who's just like, yeah, man, we're just just
gonna find a way.
Just take care of you. Just find a way. Take care of our job. I'm like, this guy gets it, and he came and played, and he came and got paid to be a backup, and when asked, has done, I mean, as good if not better. Lane Kiffin deserves a ton of credit for talent IDing this. And credit to Ole Miss for building that depth, right? Mm-hmm. Because I don't think this team is as good as last year's, but not a lot of teams are around the country. And that's why they have built depth. So they are positioned to be in a better spot than they were last year, although the team is not better than last year's. And Washington State coming to them is funny, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of weird.
Well, it's weird because Ole Miss played 2 conference games in the first 3 weeks or something like that. And so now it's all coming back around the other end.
Kurt Signetti and the Indiana Hoosiers. They will try to stop, what's the kid? Decory McClain, whatever his name is. No, McClain. The wide receiver. Decorian Moore.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's his name. They'll try to stop him. That kid's special. He's got the Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams vibes. Mm-hmm. And this really awesome Oregon team. Is this the Dan Lanning manifestation? We'll see how Indiana does on the road. That obviously the Illinois game's got a lot of us excited. The Iowa game has me less excited. Tough environment. Luckily, though, it's going to be doing the math, 12:30 local time start. So can they tamper down that crowd a little bit? What do you think? Touchdown on the hook. Usually you'd say like in this spot, it's like, is Indiana punching out of their weight class? But I don't know if they are. I don't know if they are because the quarterback they have.
Yeah, and they have shown, I think, showing with that Illinois game, it's this idea of like they are dynamic. And that's one thing that I think whenever we think about traditional like Big Ten programs, you think even when we talk about Penn State, is this idea of like, oh, it's we're going to line up and play big Midwest football. And I think Indiana has shown all season that they are truly a dynamic team that has athletes that at least can give the appearance that they can compete with Oregon and run with those guys at Oregon. And I think that's something that we'll have to wait and see. But that's what intrigues me is, are they really at that level?
Texas OU is 1.5. How are you feeling on that game? Just gut reaction right now. If I had made you go one way or the other.
The fact that Texas is favored makes me think that there's something that I don't know.
I'm not surprised though, because because Oklahoma's beaten Michigan, who I think is a second-tier team, and Auburn, who I think is a second-tier team. And they've beaten anybody else worth noting? I don't think they have. And then obviously, like we all knew John Material would come back for this one. Yes, they beat Kent State, Auburn, Oklahoma, Temple, Michigan. Yeah. So
I'm not Dr. Shin.
Yeah, I don't. They're on a bye, but Oklahoma's got to show me against a team that's got elite skill. Now, the skill position players are not as good as we thought, but this is going to test the coaching and test the team right here.
I think I'm very interested to see what Brent Venables can cook up to to confuse Arch. We talked about Arch's processing and just that whole idea of being a young quarterback. I think Brent Venables, what he's done with that defense this year, they are elite, and that's what makes me nervous on the other end.
All right, and then let's see the nighttime. Let's see. I just scroll and make sure I don't miss because they have the helmets on here. Oh, we have our Arkansas-Tennessee game, by the way, which that could be ugly. Also, love this. I want to see how Florida plays. I want to see Marcel Reed against that Florida defense. I think that game at 6 o'clock is super fascinating. Georgia-Auburn, that game's always just, so much fun because the rivalry. And then you've got Michigan-USC, which, that's like the Jersey matchup they wanted. Right. That's kind of the entire point of this thing. But this is a great night slate, just kind of top to bottom. You've got Georgia, Auburn. You've got Michigan and USC. You've got Kansas, Texas Tech, which I think Kansas could definitely acquit themselves well. You've also got down the line South Carolina and LSU. And I'll tell you what, if Sellers is on, he is so freaking good, Jack. And like in a game where he couldn't run, he was like, this is my NFL. This is the one NFL tape. All the scouts will need to see, and this will be just about it. Who's the Florida kid who played for the Titans or the Colts? Richardson.
Oh, and
the Utah game. It's like, you know what? One game of tape, don't have to watch anything else because it's all potential you're drafting off of. I think he's better than that, but that was the game for him. He was awesome passing. So I'll see at LSU against that defense. Then also BYU Arizona is interesting. It's the first true road test for BYU. And then also Arizona State going to Utah is a lot of fun. This is a wonderful cornucopia of night games. It is.
You want to know a sleeper that I love on this? Scroll up a little bit. Just something that stands out to me. Keep going up a little bit more. It is right there. ULM, 2.5-point favorites on the road at Coastal Carolina.
What's happening at ULM? This is new. This is a new development.
Could you imagine 3 years ago saying that ULM was favored at the beach? Like that, ULM has transformed a lot as a program. There's been a little bit of investment there, but it's also just been a lot of like people rallying around that program. And they went and beat Arkansas State a few weeks ago in the first ever Rice Bowl rivalry. It was the first time they had beaten Arkansas State since I think it was 2009. So we're talking like around the same time that they were beating Alabama. And I just think that has been a really under the radar kind of moving team that for the longest time, the question has been like, should they even still be playing FBS football? And now they're favored on the road against a team in Coastal that has been a darling of college football for the last few years.
Can you survive the boardwalk and tie-dye t-shirts? We'll see for ULM this weekend. Great shout on that one. You can find all that stuff at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Jack, we appreciate you. Get you out of here. Also, one more word from our friends at DraftKings.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 8887-897777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Fees may apply in Illinois, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. NFL Sunday ticket offer for new subscribers only and auto renews until canceled. Digital games and commercial use excluded. Restrictions apply. Additional NFL Sunday ticket terms at youtube.com/go/NFL Sunday ticket/terms. Limited time offer.
All right, Jack, where can the folks find you and your work and all of its variety?
KATV.com. If you're in Arkansas, tune in to Channel 7 on Saturdays. A big one. Bobby Petrino, first game as the interim head coach at Arkansas against Tennessee. We'll have a lot about that Saturday night. And, of course, you can follow me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it nowadays, at Jack Allen TV.
You follow me at Josh Neighbors _ and also at CC Podcast JN. Like the video, sub to the channel, leave your comments as well, positive or negative, because I guarantee you we can handle them. And also find us wherever you guys get your podcasts and leave us comments in those places too. And also, if you want us to talk about any topic, let us know because those comments can become an entire show for us. So please do. All right, Jack, we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good.